Hello, I'd like to talk about comprehension in elementary school students. In particular, I would like to talk about informational or nonfiction texts. Throughout history, teachers have primarily used narrative or fictional works in the classroom. This was mainly due to the lack of access of informational texts. However, since they now have more access to these nonfiction works, they have used them much more in the classroom. It is said that today fourth graders spend about half the time in the classroom reading nonfiction or informational texts. Although nonfiction texts are much more prevalent in the classroom today, researchers suggest that students still have a much higher level of comprehension when reading a narrative text. Some suggest that this is because informational texts require more prior knowledge to fully understand the text. Informational texts will include specialized vocabulary and difficult concepts that the students will need to understand in order to understand exactly what the passage is suggesting. An example of this is a science text. Science texts often include words like photosynthesis, and if the student does not fully understand the word or the concept, then they will have a difficult time understanding the passage. There are four main skills suggested that will help students comprehend informational text better. These are decoding efficiently, or how quickly students can read a word, vocabulary knowledge, how well the students understand the meaning of the word, prior knowledge, and intrinsic motivation to read the text. Liebfreund and Conradi ask how these skills affect comprehension of an informational or nonfiction text. And Conradi conducted a study of 177 elementary school students ranging from 3rd to 5th grade. These students read 4 informational texts and afterwards answered several multiple choice questions about these texts that they read. They were also tested on how well they could use the 4 component skills: decoding efficiency, vocabulary knowledge, prior knowledge, and intrinsic motivation. These researchers found that each of the 4 component skills were very useful for a deeper understanding or comprehension of the informational texts. They discovered that vocabulary knowledge was a good predictor for how well they would comprehend the text in students of all reading levels, whether they are struggling or really good readers. However, many of the other skills kind of differed a little bit. Motivation was much more significant to the struggling reader, and the decoding efficiency seemed to be much more significant to the really good readers. Overall, I would have to say I didn't really like this journal article very much. It did explain several skills associated with comprehension and why they are important. I liked that aspect. I liked their ideas. However, I think their study was a little vague. I didn't really understand how they tested each of the 4 component skills, how they determined whether the students were actually using them. I thought they weren't very clear, so their study wasn't very useful for educators. However, I do think some of their ideas in the beginning were kind of useful if you didn't really know a lot about comprehension. I definitely had questions after I finished reading this article. The first thing I wanted to know was what other skills are useful in order to comprehend a text. The article mentioned decoding efficiency, vocabulary knowledge, prior knowledge, and intrinsic motivation, but I have to assume that there are more skills that will be useful to students, and I wondered what they are and how you can actually teach them to students. And that leads me to my second question: what strategies can teachers use to help students develop their knowledge of these skills and how to use them when reading a text? This article didn't really go into much detail on how teachers can teach their students these skills. And I think that as a teacher in training, I would definitely want to know strategies to implement, and this article just simply did not offer any. Although I didn't learn any strategies I could implement in the classroom, there was some information that I thought was very useful. Liebfreund and Conradi just stressed how important non-fictional texts are. As a person who gravitates toward fictional works, I think this was a good reminder. They said that fourth grade classrooms use nonfiction texts 50% of the time, and I think that is definitely something that teachers should use in the classroom, especially since their students struggle more with the nonfiction text than the narratives. And with that in mind, teachers definitely need to show students or give them opportunities to use these skills with the non-fictional texts. I also learned just how important it is to unlock a student's prior knowledge before giving them an informational text. This will just kind of get them in the right frame of mind to read the text, because their prior knowledge will help them understand the terms and ideas presented in the text. So you just want to make sure that they have brought that to the front of their brain, that they have that in mind when they read the text. And that will help them because it will already be on their mind. They won't have to get distracted from the text to think about their personal connections to the text. This information was from reading the Component Skills Affecting Elementary Students' Informational Text Comprehension, which was an article by Freund and Conradi. I hope that you've also learned a little bit about comprehension and the skills students need to fully understand a text.